and other information and explaining a few of our references if we should go over those. All right, so Jasmine, do you want to start with taxonomy and general information?
Yep, I can start. So for the taxonomy, the domain is eukaryote, the kingdom is Amelia, the phylum is Chordata, the class is Actinobacterungi, and the order is Perciformes. For the general information, the common name is surgeonfishes. There's 72 species within 6 genera. They live in the tropics and subtropics, excluding the Mediterranean. They live in offshore coral, and they can communicate through color change. That's usually during mating or competition, and it can also be during the time of day. So for example, at night they will become darker to hide themselves better in the water. And then for the evolutionary tree, I have rabbitfish, morse, idol, the tang, and the luvar. So they're all herbivores. They all have strong abductor muscles to eat plants. They all live in shallow coral reefs. The Moorish idol only has one single spike, and the others have multiple spikes on their back. And the Tang and Luvar both spawn within aggression, so they spawn in big groups.
All right, so for their natural history, they, like Jasmine said, they live in corals, and it also depends on how old they are. So the younger juveniles and their larvae will usually burrow so that they're better protected from predators, and their larvae is actually clear. So like that last picture that we have under the genera, that's one of their younger ones. Very clear, and when they're that young, they're transparent and they don't have scales or ridges on their body as you'll see on the older ones, on the adults. They spawn by forming individual pairs and group pairs. And after that, a unique feature or behavior for them will be when the males are fighting, whether over territory or over mating, they have a kind of like a scalpel on their body. It's very sharp, even to humans. So if they were to glide past a human, it could cut someone, and that's what they use to defend themselves. And that's one of the reasons why they're known as surgeonfish, is because of that scalpel-like appendage that they have to defend themselves. And as for the geographic distribution, they're found in the tropics, subtropics, and Indo-Pacific regions, and they're oddly enough not in the Mediterranean. They're found pretty much everywhere else, though. Yeah, so these are just a few different types of them that we found. One of them you might notice looks like Dory from the movie Finding Dory. That's their most popular one, I believe, because whenever you look for a tang surgeonfish, it will usually come up with a picture of Dory. Their yellow tang is very bright and vibrant, very pretty. They have a powder blue tang right here. It's a kind of like a mix between the yellow and the blue, but just less obvious. And then the juvenile, like I pointed out before, is just this one is probably in between their transferring from larvae to a juvenile stage. And we have a video on the next slide. I think I just wanted to show how they kind of behave when they feel threatened. This person, I think this one's an Arabian surgeonfish, but if a human gets too close to them, you'll kind of see how they behave to defend themselves. So you can just play that. yellow part on his, like close to his tail, is that little scalp, and he's, as you can see when he's going past someone or the person recording him, he uses that part of his body to try and make contact with the person. Okay, I think we're all good. Yeah, so that just kind of was supposed to show a little bit of how they use that extra defense that they have, so basically it's just used to swim around. But if there was no video of them like attacking each other, it was usually just people, I think, who just got too close to them. So yeah, that's all I have.
So now for economic importance. Sorry, I hope I didn't cut you off there. Now for economic importance, they actually have a very, very wide array of how they're important to humans. The four main ways they're actually important to humans are for the aquarium trade, tourism, the pet industry, and occasionally food for a specific subset of surgeonfishes. A good example for the tourism and the aquarium trade one is the yellow tang or yellow surgeonfish, which you can actually see as the second one right next to Dory, as I'll refer to it as for right now. The all yellow tang, that one is actually the #1 exported captured fish, I should say, out of Hawaii. And it's actually a very popular fish because it grows much more, or it thrives much more natively in Hawaii than in other places of the world. It's a very popular tourist attraction to go see schools of those fish when scuba diving in the coral reefs in Hawaii. Next, we have how they're popular in for the pet industry. As you could probably guess, people have always loved their very large array of patterns, of colors, of everything that all the species have to offer. But what really made them have an explosive boom in the pet industry is after the movie Finding Nemo came out. They were always up in the top 10 position of ranking of most popular fishes to have as a pet. But for a brief period after Finding Nemo came out, the flagtail surgeonfish, which is the first one, you will recognize that as what Dory was in the movie Finding Nemo, actually got placed onto the list of top 10 pets just to keep in general as well. Not for a very long time, but it was up there next to cats and dogs just because of the explosive boom from that movie. And then finally, we don't have it on the respective genre, unfortunately, but there's a very, very popular fish to eat in the Caribbean called the five-band tangs, also known as the convict tangs. They're a very popular part of the people's diet down there. However, unfortunately, they do carry a poison in them. not a super lethal poison or specifically for them. It's actually a poison that comes from the flesh of many fish that just swim amongst the reefs. It is called, I don't even know if I can pronounce this right. I tried looking up the definition. Ciguatera poisoning, which comes from the leaves, from the reefs itself. Even because of the poisoning, they're still considered generally safe to eat, just because the poisoning occurs very, very infrequently, and even when it does, it's almost never lethal when it does occur. But you can just think of the symptoms of this poisoning as akin to food poisoning. So you'd get a very upset stomach with nausea, diarrhea, extreme itchiness of the skin, and cramps. It's only lethal if you have any pre-existing health conditions, but it's still very slightly lethal in some conditions. But it is considered safe despite that. And other than that, they're just one of the top 10 most popular fishes in both aquariums and for pet purposes all around. Other than that, we have the other information, which realistically just goes over some of the more interesting facts that we've already covered about the tangs, being that despite their looks, they are actually an extremely hardy fish. So that does definitely boost their popularity for pet industry and tourism, or not tourism, aquarium trade, because they're extremely easy to take care of. They're very hardy, and they're just beautiful to look at. And a cool piece of, or not cool, but a very reassuring piece of information is, out of all of the subspecies of tangs and surgeon fishes, none are currently under the Environmental Protection Act, because none are currently endangered, luckily. And then to end it out, you can just see our references if you want. We, I believe, have a total of 8 or 9 on there. And I think that wraps up our presentation pretty much.
All right, very good, guys. Now, can you actually keep the poster back just for a quick hot second for anyone to ask questions and for me to ask questions? Yeah, very good. So I'm not going to provide like verbal commentary, point out what was wrong, what was correct right now, because we want to finish it up. B, I wanted to keep that comment just between me and the other students. So when I actually provide you your grade, I will provide some basic criticism regarding where you did well, where you were not great. And if you need to follow up on that, you can actually, get back to me, and I will provide any detailed corrections. But for now, just for simplicity, I'm not going to correct anything, anything that is wrong, or rather inadequate. I don't think at this stage I'm going to expect anything wrong. Couple of questions I want to follow up. First, before my questions, anyone else with questions? I don't. Yep.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How exactly are we filling out the peer review?
So,
or poster review, I mean.
Yeah, so the poster review is actually after listening to what the presentation, after taking a look at the presentation, like as the presentation proceeds, fill in how would you grade them, right, based on what they presented, right? So you should do that, like I mentioned in my email early this week, right? Based on information presented over here, right, and based on how they presented it, right, and the knowledge they conveyed, the content, right, generally you can. And if you look at the poster review document, right, they actually ask questions, right, like family of interest clearly identified. Is it there, right? Not whether it is right or wrong. Is it there? So you mark it as check, and then taxonomy is complete. Again, it's not your job to make sure whether it is right or wrong. That's my job. Is taxonomy there? Check, right? Evolutionary tree is there, check, right? It's basically whether they actually have done that particular part or not, right? Whether natural history is very well described. It's not, again, not whether the natural history is correct. Did they do a good job in describing the natural history component, ecological importance component, right? A photograph of good quality, right? So it's simply very very basic qualitative assessment, right? Rather than looking into the through of whether the information is correct or wrong. That's not your job. It's simply to assess them based on how they present and whether they do it a complete job, whether their poster is complete, whether they have everything that I expected. Yeah. So so as we go, please, I think it's easier if you fill up the poster review assignment as the presentation continues. Any other questions? First of all, Emily, did I answer your question? Is that clear?
Yes, it was clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding, like, for me or for the sturgeon fish group?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So for the poster reviews, are we doing it for each poster or just we pick one?
No, for each poster.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Each poster collectively, right? Not like, so for sturgeon ones, just one from each student, right? Don't do like one for Annie, one for Jasmine, one for Jared. No, just one for all of them collectively, right? So you will do, yeah, so you will do what? We have 4 groups, so you will do 3. Each student will do 3 poster assessments, right? And I already noticed that some of you have already uploaded your team assessments, right? Which you can, do on your own. I have a couple of questions, guys. But before that, any other questions from the rest of the class? Nope. So I'm going to just a couple of questions. Can you briefly mention back? I think Jared, you mentioned this regarding their conservation status.
From what I found, it didn't say that there were any of them that were currently under conservation. It seemed like all of the, at least when I looked it up, what I found is it seemed like all of them were still populous enough to keep them out of the conservation status.
Yeah, so you were looking at red list, I believe, is it?
Red list?
Yeah, like how did you look up their conservation status? From what source?
Oh, give me a sec. Let me grab my.
No, yeah, don't worry about that. No, the reason I asked that question is that some of them were actually doing really poorly, especially in the Eastern Atlantic coast. There was a sturgeon. The Atlantic sturgeon was doing poorly, but because of conservation actions, their population has rebounded. And the conservation status differs, based on who's doing the assessment. So red list is, that's why when I asked Jared, what source, red list does not list, I don't think they list any of them, but within the US, some of the species have been listed, but that's fine. Because the conservation status depends on what source that you are consulting. There are several different conservation listing or conservation status assessments, but generally they are doing fine. Another follow-up question I have, this is for all of you guys. So from the map, it seems like you have actually shaded, the map shows their distribution being marine, and the video itself and the coral reef situation that you referred to, like, did you find any examples for them being in the freshwater environments? Oh, yeah, Annie?
I looked that up and it seems that it says, from what I have gathered, that they're exclusively marine dwelling and present in the subtropics. I was trying to look if they were freshwater, and as far as I could tell, they seem to only be in salt water. So I don't know if
Yes.
that's correct, but that's what I gathered from the research.
Right. So most of them are actually marine. You're right with that, right? I mean, you did mention the fact that you find them in coral reefs, right? That actually brings up coastal, saltwater fact. And some of them are actually also deep water marine. There's a few species that are actually freshwater. For example, there's one species of sturgeon that occupies the Mississippi River Basin and one species occupying the Connecticut River Basin. So there's not a whole lot of sturgeons in that family. When I say sturgeon, that family, that the family is largely marine. There's a couple of freshwater species, a very few freshwater species. Well, that's actually basically it in terms of questions I have. Oh, one more thing. Now, I don't recall who presented the economic part. So in the listing, right, you do mention in the very first bullet point, aquarium, pet, tourism, all of those are correct. And then mention food. Can someone tell me, like, food-wise, like, what did you find regarding their food value to humans?
That would be me. I think I went over that. So the a popular one that is eaten very popularly in the tropics is the 5-band surgeonfish, or it's also referred to as a convict surgeonfish, just because if you look at it, it has the white and black stripes that the prisoner outfits used to have. So that one is very popularly eaten in the tropics by a lot of populations of people down there in the tropics. The only problem with that is that occasionally they do suffer from ciguatera poisoning. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I am. Which is just a poisoning that the fish naturally absorb from living amongst the coral reefs. So it's not something specific to surgeonfish.
Yeah,
It's
right.
specific to any fish that swim amongst the coral reefs.
Right.
And it is basically never lethal. The causes that come from it are essentially very, very bad case of food poisoning. You could imagine it as the world's lightest case of cholera, but it's usually non-lethal. It's just very bad to get.
Yeah, I don't have I have not heard of that, actually, a lethal effect of that. And you guys are also correct about that. The actual the scalpel like thing on their peduncle, that's exactly like where you find it. Like, if you can remember from the video, which was very, very clear, on the place where the tail attaches to the fish's body, on either side there is something like, like actually very sharp ridge. That's extremely sharp, and they do try to rub their tail against you if you get too close. Yeah, that's actually
I wanted to say, like, we do eat it, like in Jamaica, they do eat it a lot. That's like a popular fish. I've never heard of anyone getting like a poisoning from it. So
go ahead, Annie.
That for us in Jamaica, we eat the doctor fish, which is a form of herring, and it's actually really popular there. But I've had it because my family's Jamaican, but I've never had any like body in our family have a problem. It's a lot of things in like the Caribbean. It's just how you prepare it that makes it dangerous.
And a lot of times only certain people, like certain fishermen, can like get those fish because they know about it.
Yeah, actually that's a point I was going to bring up. It's how you cook it, right? Certain level of cooking heat can destroy the toxin. So that's why actually it's not that prominent. The toxicity is not that prominent. And also because of their really weird shape. I mean, if you look at your pictures and the video, it's a really cool panfish. It's not a panfish. Panfish actually largely freshwater. It's like a panfish, right? It actually, you can easily fry it up. It's flat, right? Like a pancake. So you can easily fry it. very easily on a pancake. So that's another reason why it is so popular as a edible fish. Yeah, it's really cool that some of you actually have personal connection with these kind of fish species. Alrighty, if anything you guys want to wrap up the surgeonfish group. Alrighty, next, who wants to go next? Volunteers? No?
Do you guys want to go next?
Yeah, go ahead, you guys. Moni? Yeah, go ahead and share the screen.
I don't have the whole PowerPoint. I don't know.
Yeah. Who's your team members, Monica?
I think Matt has it. I don't know if they want to go.
Yeah, I can share the PowerPoint.
Yeah, go ahead, share the PowerPoint, and let's go.
All right, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
We can, yes. So Matt, click like on the bottom of your screen, like to the furthest corner. If you move your pointer a little bit, yeah, and then move it towards your left slightly. Yeah, there you go. Click that one. There. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so we had the family Echidne Darners, and our group was me, Kayla, Monica, and Kenny. Who had taxonomy?
I can go ahead and start. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. For the taxonomy, their domain is Eukarya. Their kingdom is Animalia. They belong to the phylum Arthropoda. Their class is Insecta, and their order is Odonata. So here, next we can go to the evolutionary tree. So the way this tree is set up, when we copy and pasted it, the boxes are a little bit off from where they're supposed to be. But you can see down by the base of the tree, we have the 3 traits that evolved. And that is the Agnothalus mouth parts, the Hematelobolus development, and wings. And then we come further down, so past the Odonata, and then we have the Ephemeroteria. So there is where the vestigial mouth parts came. And we come down farther, and here we have the trait of the folding wings that take up the rest of the top of this tree. And then we have the Hematelobolus development here at the very top for the Homo metabola. And then we can come here to the representative genera. We have a few pictures here with the various species within this family. So here we have the rusty darner, the emperor dragonfly, the southern hawker, and the swamp darner. Of course, because they are dragonflies, they all look pretty much the same, but if you look closely, the major differences are going to be in the colorings, the patterns, yeah, basically just the coloring and the pattern. So if you look closely, you can see just the simple differences. And then we can move on to our other topics.
For the general information, their common name is Dorner. They are well known as insect. Its distinctive characteristics are extended body, flat prumentum. The Dorners are large, rabbit dragonflies and strong flyers with braced vein. Their large compound eyes cover most of the head, and most species are blue or green or a combination of both. They are distributed throughout North America in arid aquatic climates. 13 genera are represented in this family. For natural history,
For the habitat, they can be found in low-flowing stream and riffles of rivers. The majority of Ochinidae species are found in lentic habitats, primarily in marshes, littoral lakes environments like wooded lakes, pond swamps, fen bog, and pond with high vegetation. For the specialized diet, they feed at forest openings and will perch on trees, branches, and sometimes on the ground. They are predaceous organisms and feed primarily on invertebrates and small vertebrates. For the reproduction, they have separate sexes, breed seasonally, and fertilize internally. Male and female use the tandem position in which the male's head is at the female's tail and vice versa. The male transferred his sperm from the primary to the secondary genitalia, known as the humulus, in preparation for copulation, and also remove any sperm inside the female from prior mates. And females usually lays fertilized eggs in the stem of any kind of plant, creating a nest-like cavity using their ovipositor. And for the unique behavior, when males are on patrol, they often defend their territory against other males of the same species while investigating intruders of other species. And they tend to patrol near or along a water's edge, hovering just a few feet above the water. And females are usually away from the water and forest until they come out to mate and lay eggs. And the life cycle takes 2 to 4 years to complete. And the donors are among the largest and fastest flying North American dragonflies. Here's a picture of the distribution map. And as I said before, these species has a wide range in much of the northern states and Canadian provinces in North America.
So the darners have a lot of economic importance, and most of it comes with the research they help provide in, mainly with aquatic ecosystems. Scientists can learn of the water quality just based off of the population of the darners. They can also learn about climate change in whatever area they're in, also based off the population. They work as bioindicators, mostly of just water quality or purification and how they might need to treat it. Health professionals also receive benefits when studying them, mostly when learning about metabolic diseases, specifically type 2 diabetes. One of the parasites that the darners host kind of gives them the same effect as someone with type 2 diabetes, so studying them with that parasite provides them a lot of useful information on the subject. They can also be good with pest control, specifically with mosquitoes. However, they have a negative impact on pollination when they decide to prey on pollinators such as bees. Culturally, they also have a lot of significance. Certain cultures eat them as delicacies, although it's not that common. Some use them as display pieces, and for the Navajo tribes, they're symbols of water for them. Some other info about them: while they're not totally endangered, steps are put in place to preserve them so they can keep learning about things such as the environment or the metabolical diseases that they aid with. They are the largest dragonflies in North America, with a life cycle of 2 to 4 years. However, that's heavily influenced by the environment in which they live in. And when hiding from predators, they like to use dead debris and logs to evade them.
Okay, so I had a couple of stuff, but I won't cover what you guys did. So they are predaceous as adults in pre-adult stages. They're quick and agile flyers, which is good for when they're hunting to eat, especially like the small insects. Their eggs hatch into aquatic immatures. I don't know how to say the N word. It's naive. NAIADS, naiads, that feed opportunistically on other forms of aquatic life, including mayfly, small crustaceans, annelids, and mollusks. Yeah. The life cycle takes 2 to 4 years to complete, and the banding pattern is present for the first 2 years of development, and a characteristic unique to the species, since unlike other species such as the damselflies, lose the banding pattern after the second instar of the larval development, and their development is influenced by air and water temperature cycles. So adults emergence can occur anytime from late May to early July, depending on the species, and larvae emerge from the water at dusk and crawl up an object positioned vertically to dry off. And the shortened larval stage is due to the migration of the species from the wintering months in the North America to the autumn. And also their defensive behaviors are sophisticated nervous system, so it enables them to visually track and intercept prey in flight, which makes them like agile, and they're territorial and defensive. So the men will they fly in later season when cool temperatures prevent other dragonflies, so they don't have much competition, which other dragonflies or darners aren't able to do, because their range are from like further north than others. And the men, they typically basically like stay up at night to protect, and their legs are used in either as a basket for catching prey or grapples for clinging to emergent vegetation. And their known predators are ants, frogs, birds, aquatic insects, different types of fishes, and spotted salamander. They are distributed or found throughout North America around aquatic arid climates. So Montana is one of like the main states, and like Minnesota has like a little bit of them. So they around aquatic arid climates. Nevertheless, other species can be found dispersed or living in low flowing streams and riffle rivers. The majority are in lentic habitats, mainly marshes, littoral lake environments, ponds with high vegetation, and places where you can find dead debris in order to stay away from potential predators. However, they are sensitive to water currents and temperature, even though they live near those places. And darners are widely distributed throughout the world, and the family, how do you say the Achnades, includes over 440 described species, and just 41 species inhabit North America. So you can find them you have some in Europe, you have in East Asia, where they are also used for like medicinal things. And they can, the map. So I didn't really find a map that really described them. I mostly found like stuff about like mercury and the disease that they brought. But I know that Minnesota and Montana, the map that we have up. So it shows, can't really see my screen, but purple shows them all year round where they're distributed in Montana. And also in the summer and winter, they're also distributed in those places. They don't really go anywhere much. And in Minnesota, they are mostly in the north, and then you have some in southern part of Minnesota during like the autumn times. So yeah, that's it.
Right. I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So questions from the rest of the class? Questions, comments?
I just have another general question again about this poster review.
Yeah. Go ahead. Do ask, please.
I'm having trouble filling it out and listening to the presentation at the same time.
like take a picture, and sometimes you can just compare it to your, even though it's different, like how you guys did it, layout and stuff.
What I can do is actually for that part, I can, I'm recording this, right? So you can actually, scroll through it and, grade that later today. But the other option is actually, I think that is the best way to do it. You can, in that way, you actually have, their voice and the visuals, right? I think that's the easiest way to do. Like one time you can actually do it. Otherwise, like if I have waited until you guys upload everything, that's going to take extra longer, right? So if I should be able to upload this video of the presentation, for anyone who is unable to grade and listen to the presentation at the same time. Will that help, Emily? And the
Yeah, that will help.
yeah, I think that's the best way to go. Usually we do it like in class, we don't have this problem because you have the sheets in front of you, but I do realize it's a little challenging to do everything on the screen. Yeah, so, but don't forget that, I'm not collecting immediately, right? You have until later tonight to submit all of these. Any other questions for the team or for me?
I'm sorry if you might have already said this, but is there like a form for the poster review?
Yep. It's actually, I sent that in an email a couple of times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you go to Blackboard, there is actually, two different forms. One for this poster review. The other one is for the peer review. Both of them are on Blackboard, and I sent a couple of emails reminding.
Oh, yeah, I found it.
Yeah.
Hi.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. So I have a couple of questions. So the range map we are looking at, I'm asking from Monica because I thought she was presenting that part. That is Montana, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So generally distribution, I know they are like widely distributed within entire North America, or did you find information that says they are more Western, or are they actually more like North America wide, Eastern, Central, Western, all over?
They said they were more up north. So, and in this state, they were, is that west? Yeah, they're more Western because in Minnesota, they're also distributed the same way.
I see.
If you are, only if you're at the bottom.
So you said northern North America and western part of, okay,
in the states, yeah.
Oh, of the state, correct. I gotcha. Yeah. Was there a particular reason why you highlighted Montana? Is it one of the,
that's how they did it. I was searching for something that would show like, so when the purple represents like all year round, then green is like the summer, and then I think it's like red.
Yeah.
Is like for the winter. No, autumn flies. Because those are, they just highlight the places where they're more distributed. There's some that's in like the other parts, but they're mostly over in like the western parts. In that state, they're like widely found in that state.
Okay. And so I only see the purple color in the image that you uploaded, but you did mention something regarding their, they don't, did you say they don't shift their distribution across seasons that much? Or
yeah, they don't really migrate that much.
So there are slight
for like the larval stage. Wait, let me find it.
Oh, gotcha. Right. I understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so the shortened larval stage is due to the migration the species participate in, so only like the winter months, and they don't really move around much.
Right. Yeah. No, they don't. Not that much. Only different.
The purple part, I had like a density thing, but I couldn't put it in there because it wouldn't allow me. So during like the so they go like south of the state, and then during the winter, and then return back to the north when it goes to autumn. Stuff when it goes to the warmer months.
That's interesting, actually. That's really interesting. And in terms of life cycle, so you did mention about 2 to 4 years, right? So how much of that is spent as an adult and how much of that as a larvae? Did you guys come across any of that information?
I think most of it is as an adult. Say like I said 2 years. No, 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, 2 to 4 years totally, right?
Yeah, I want to say like probably a year and a half is like say or is it 2 years? Because the banding pattern is present for first 2 years of development.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting if they spent, at least 50-50 as an adult and as a larvae. Because mostly aquatic insects, insects have with an aquatic larval stage, most of their time is spent as a larvae, right? And not that long as an adult. So it's quite interesting, the fact that they do spend some time of their life as an adult. That's quite interesting.
So about 2.5 years for the larval stage.
Yeah, so slightly longer as a larvae, but still remarkably, long time spent as an adult. And it does make sense why they migrate at least slightly to avoid the winter climate, particularly if you're looking at Montana, Minnesota. Those are extremely cold environments. Did you find any information regarding how do they overwinter? Like what kind of habitats they move to?
Could you say that again?
Yeah, like during winter, right? How do they pass winter? What kind of habitats do they, refuge or seek refuge during winter time? Where do they hide or spend their winter?
I think I have that in there.
Anyone else know? All right.
Oh, I think they stay in high vegetation.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
The
That's even
migration typically takes like a month.
That's actually interesting. Well, that's possible.
Because like the warmer months, they're in like the marshes.
Yeah.
Like even though they're like don't like water, they still like hover over water and stuff like that.
Right.
So
You guys know these, some of the shared derived traits. What's the difference between holometabola and hemimetabola? Can someone tell me the difference between those two? I don't remember who was presenting that part, but what is the difference between holo and hemimetabola?
I believe the homometabola is when they go through a complete metamorphosis lifestyle.
That is correct, right? It's actually when the adult and larvae are quite different, right? Like in the case of any dragonfly, yeah, that's actually holo metabolic life cycle, right? Complete, sort of holo means complete, right? And in this case, it refers to complete switch in their lifestyles, in their morphology, even in their habitat from aquatic to terrestrial / arboreal. Hemi means partial, right? So lower down in that particular tree, you have hemi because, like those ones actually undergo, the larvae and adult don't look that different from each other. They are niches, they are habitats, their behavior, their morphology aren't that different. Aren't that conspicuous, but when we are looking at holometabolic individuals, they are quite different. Yep. Those are the only questions I have. We can navigate on to the third group. Who wants to go next? Come on, guys.
I guess we'll go.
Alrighty, go ahead, Emily. Share your screen.
How did you get it to fit the whole screen?
Yeah, okay. Now what you do for this one is on the top, it says present. There we go. Right, go ahead. Just give me one hot second to start writing things down. Alrighty. Yeah, ready, go ahead.
All right, I guess I'm starting off. So our family is Trochilidae, which is hummingbirds. They are eukaryotes in the domain eukarya. The kingdom Animalia. They're chordates. Oh, sorry about that. They belong to the class Aves, birds, and they belong to the order Trochiliformes. Their common name, hummingbirds. They're very fast, fast little birds that can that move around quickly, hovering from flower to flower. They can hover like straight in the air. And they're also very good pollinators because, as I mentioned earlier, flying quickly from flower to flower. And there are about 115, sorry, extant genera of hummingbirds. So the evolutionary tree, so you start out with feathers, of course. That's the ancestor of all birds had to have feathers. And then it splits from the, I forget what all the hummingbirds, tree swifts, and swifts are, but they're all in a group. But those two split, and first it goes to Agothelidae, which are owlet nightjars, and they split with the trait of having a very small beak and a very wide mouth. I don't know if you've ever seen a putu before. It's those funny looking birds with the really wide mouths, but it's like that. And then so it splits again, and hummingbirds, they differentiate themselves from the swifts by having special taste receptors that allow them to, I guess, taste nectar and go after nectar, while the swifts have longer wingtips because they spend a lot of time flying. Normal swifts actually barely even touch the ground. And then tree swifts have a hind toe that allows them to perch on trees, basically differentiating them from the swifts. And then, so hummingbirds are usually found pretty much just in the Americas. I believe that they actually originated in the old world in Europe, but they eventually came over to the Americas and died out in the old world, I guess. Just it's like a reverse horse situation. They originated in America and then came to Europe, all that. And then so, sorry if I'm rambling, but yeah, I think yeah, I think One of my partners is next.
Yeah, so for the natural history of hummingbirds, the hummingbirds primarily consume flower nectar, but they are also known to consume insects such as flies, gnats, mosquitoes, spiders. The mouth of a hummingbird is very complex, which is comprised of several different parts, which is a slender beak and a tongue that consists of 2 hollow tubes. And its function as of the tongue is to work as a mechanical micropump. This is important when the nectar travels from the tip of the hummingbird's bill to its throat without the hummingbird having to exert extra effort. So the hummingbirds have unique design muscles that allow them to beat their wings extremely rapid. This is also important because most of the time when they're 2 to 3 inches away from a flower or an insect, they need to remain afloat. So beating their wings as fast as they can helps them to stay afloat while they are feeding or feeding on insects or feeding on the nectar of a flower. And the hummingbirds have the highest metabolic rate of any animal, in a few hours from starving to death at all times. And the hummingbirds sleep by entering hibernation-like state called torpor in order to conserve the energy. And over to the right, you will see certain representative genera, starting with the bee hummingbird, which is known out of all the family Trochilidae, it's known as the smallest hummingbird out of all the family. It's mainly inhabits Cuba, but it's known to inhabit or other areas close surrounding in the Caribbean, and it's mainly inhabits areas of low elevation. And this hummingbird also is known to have a very fast metabolism, which is very important because it exerts a lot of energy by flying around, because the mass of its wings compared to the mass of its body makes it exert a lot of energy. And to the right, there's the Rufous hummingbird, which is known to inhabit from Alaska to Northern California. They are very territorial feeders, and they can flap their wings very fast, and so fast that it makes a whine sound to evade predators, or to just make that sound, and when they're feeding, somebody will go away. The next one is the giant hummingbird, which weighs about 20 grams, and it is about 8 inches long. And it is, as its name says, it is the largest species out of all. They don't come across other species. The only time really is when they mate. And the male giant hummingbird, after mating with the female, it would leave her to raise the young very quickly. And the last is the ruby-throated hummingbird, which is known for having the red patch on its throat. And the ruby-throated hummingbird, it is known to come around only in the summertime. So when it comes time for the winter, they will travel and migrate as far as below the Gulf of Mexico and inhabit areas such as Central America and South America. And that's it for the representative genera. I believe somebody else will go.
All right.
Sorry, my computer's being kind of slow, so if I freeze for some reason, that would be why.
Yeah. Let's go on. Yeah, that's fine. We'll figure it out.
For economic importance, hummingbirds use their slender bills to lap up nectar from inside flowers. By doing so, they inadvertently carry pollen from one flower to another. Though not as prevalent as insects, as they are pollinators for many species of flowers, hummingbirds play an important role in the health of ecosystems. This is evident with some species of flowers having evolved longer tube-shaped flowers to better accommodate the long bills of hummingbirds. Though the charm of hummingbirds have captivated many, as hummingbirds require open areas and the freedom to fly around in order to locate new food sources, they do not make ideal pets. However, it is instead popular to set up specialized flowers and feeders in order to entice them to come visit. Though in doing so, one must be careful not to attract possible predators as well. Once a hummingbird claims a feeding spot, it will actively defend that spot from other hummingbirds that may be nearby. And I've seen this myself in my own backyard before. For the other information, hummingbirds are both polygynous and sexually dimorphic. Polygynous meaning that a male will mate with multiple females, and said males will not stay to help raise young. And their sexual dimorphism comes from their coloring. Females tend to be more drab colored than males, who in turn have more flashy and often iridescent plumage. Hummingbird courtship displays occur in a group. The displays are elaborate acrobatic acts to try to catch a female's interest. As an example, the ruby-throated hummingbird males fly back and forth in a pendulum-like arc to compete for the attention of a female. And hummingbirds are very attuned to color. They, like many other birds, can see all the colors that humans can, but also supplementary colors that exist only in the ultraviolet spectrum. This is because in addition to the 3 types of color-sensitive cones that humans possess in their eyes, red, blue, and green, hummingbird eyes contain a 4th type of color-sensitive cone that responds to ultraviolet light. Experiments performed on hummingbirds prove they can tell differences between individual wavelength types of ultraviolet light. And that's all the information I had on that.
Very cool. Right, I think that's it, right? Those are the complete part. So any other questions from the rest of the class? Okay. So I have just a few questions, actually. I think first one I would like to, it's something that James mentioned. Now, James, you did mention that their evolutionary origin is from the old world.
Yeah.
And then they actually, although today they are exclusively limited to New World, did they mention any reason for their demise or non-existence in the old world anymore?
Hold on, let me just pull something up. I just saw something about that. I think it has something to do with flowers, maybe. I'm trying to find the story. I forgot to put it down because I just found this last night.
It's okay. No. It's okay. You can describe it if you have the information with you.
I'm just looking for the information. I have it. I'm just all right. So I think actually, yeah, it doesn't really
It's okay.
It says it says something about I guess there are clues of their relationships with plants. There are a lot of plants that look like they evolved alongside hummingbirds in Europe, long tube-shaped flowers, and hummingbirds don't really have a very good sense of smell, so usually flowers who attract hummingbirds don't really smell.
It could be that actually. It could be the fact that the loss of flower, because they're very specialists. Well, not all of them, but generally they are since their beak is, so peculiar, if you compare different species of hummingbirds, the beak structure is not exactly the same. Generally, they will look like slender and long, but if you look at the curvature and all of that, they are not. They're very very specific beaks, so they don't fit into many other different flowers, right? So
Right.
that could be one reason. The other reason could be is actually evolution of other families that are more generalist nectar feeders, like sunbirds, are actually much more successful in the old world than these guys, right? And they're doing really well over there. But so that could be another reason. It's really interesting that like in the case of the horse, right?
Yeah.
In horses, they actually evolved in North America, then crossed the Bering ice bridge, went through Siberia, through Russia, they went to Central Asia, and then diversified there. So it's really interesting, that happened quite a bit. But not uncommon, but it's really interesting when that happens, because that lineage in old world, I cannot remember how long they lasted, but we don't have any remnants of that lineage anymore. In the Asian, rather, not just Asia, the entire old world. So another one of you mentioned, which is correct. You mentioned that they have a very high metabolism. Okay. My question is, why do you think they have such a high metabolism, or whether you read an explanation for the very high metabolism? It was not an exaggeration. Some of you mentioned that they can starve if they don't have food, right? Within days, within hours, they can starve and die. So why are they so high in their metabolic rate?
They have a really fast heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's one reason. Another, that's one big reason.
So they like move really fast, and they're always like hovering by doing the figure 8 move with their wings. So they use up so much energy just hovering and moving around quickly. So they need to be constantly refueling, I guess.
That's also correct, actually. I mean, those are connected, right? I mean, why do they have such a very high, abnormally high heartbeat? If you and I have that heartbeat, we will die. So these guys actually, the heartbeat is so high. That's because they need to pump blood, for their pectoralis major and minor muscles to keep that wing beat. And the other reason is actually there. Any other reason you want to share? Like think, suspect? They are very small. That's the reason. When you are so small, you lose heat, right? And heat is energy. So if you lose heat, you need to, in order to keep heat, to gain heat, you need to keep eating. And heat is really important to keep your muscles active. So that's another reason. I mean, if you look at another mammalian group that has a very, very high metabolism, those are the small rats, small rodents, right? That are actually extremely high in metabolism. So now don't get the idea that do all small species, do all small vertebrates have very high metabolism? No, not really, but definitely when you have very high metabolism, you could be looking at a very small vertebrate, right? I mean, shrews are a really, really weird example, right? An equally sized rodent will have a higher metabolism than a shrew, which is extremely fascinating. Yeah, actually, those are the few questions or things that I want to do. 2021 share with. Did anyone raise their hands? I thought somebody raised their hands.
Oh, me. I was saying the swallowtail hummingbird is Jamaica's like national bird. And it's like, I know they're attracted to hibiscus because it's a very open flower, and they're small, so it's easy to hover, and it has a lot of nectar.
Yeah, right. I mean, they do. And I think the reason for that is not just that it's an open flower, right? I mean, if you look at the hibiscus very carefully, it actually has a corona, right? And the nectar is located deep in that corona. So their slender, narrow beaks actually help them to reach down into the nectar glands and drink. And in other parts of the world, in Caribbean islands, they're actually have diversified quite well and doing very well. In other parts, there's actually long evolutionary history between evolution of the flower shape and the beak. I think one of you did mention that briefly. There are evolutionary histories where they both become specialized, right? I mean, you don't hear about specialized pollinators. Mostly pollination is a generalist task. There are, for a particular flower, there are many species that can pollinate it, but hummingbirds is an exceptional situation where there are evolutionary evidence where both of them actually, evolved towards very specifically for the hummingbird to drink from one type of a species or a one genera. I should say one genera, not one type of a species, and also for that particular genera of flowers to evolve a very specific flower shape, so that only hummingbirds, right, can actually drink from that. That's really, yeah.
My grandma, because she plants, and so she has like a big garden, and it turned into basically a forest. Even like stuff like the bell, they're like, we call them bellflowers, but I forgot what the actual name is.
I think the trumpet flower, I think.
Yeah, I think that is it. They will always go in that too for some reason. So like sometimes you see like 10 of them a day.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually, yeah. I mean, the other reason is why that kind of thing happen is because if you are so well adapted to drink nectar, why bother about going into other places, right? Because you don't have any competition, right? If the nectar is very deeply hidden in a flower, and if you as a hummingbird have the very specialized beak to specifically reach those deep hidden glands, right? You have no competition. You have guaranteed supply of food, and you need that supply of food because your metabolism is so high. And for the flower, why hide nectar glands so deep and eliminate so many other potential pollinators? Well, then you can deliver, with that kind of specialization, the flower can deliver a lot of nectar for that particular bird. The other reason is then the pollination always happens within the same species, right? If you have a generalized pollinator, you actually lose a lot of pollen. Like it's not guaranteed that a particular bird will collect pollen from species A and deliver to a different individual of species A, right? So lots of pollen is actually lost because it's not delivered to the correct species. But if a specialization evolves, it actually benefits the pollinator as well as the flower. For the flower, it delivers. It guarantees that the pollen is delivered to another individual of the same flower, and the bird gets a good supply of nectar without much competition. And nectar is not cheap to produce. It's not easy to find, right? Especially in certain seasons, especially in the not in the Caribbean islands for that matter. Mostly it's in the New World part, like actually in the continental United States, the pollen is limited for certain seasons, right? I mean, if you could not gather pollen effectively, you will actually not left with much much nectar or pollen to feed on. So all of those actually are important parts when you talk about hummingbirds. Right. Any last comments?
Something interesting I found.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Is that the only kind of hummingbird you'll see around here is the ruby-throated hummingbird?
Yeah.
You can kind of see on the map there's like one or maybe a couple other species of hummingbirds in the US, but really it's just the one.
Yeah, if you look at the scale, right? The blue is like one species. So yeah, you guys are right. Blue is actually that's only like the blue color is what you mostly see throughout the US, except in certain parts of the Southwest, right? And again, you can see that there is nothing in the Great Plains, right? The Great Plains is actually like there's an open patch in the Great Plains area where you don't find them. Okay. Yep, actually you can actually now unshare your presentation, Emily. So I believe that's it. Am I forgetting any other groups? Just let me just hang on tight here. I'm checking something here really quickly. Yeah, I think actually we covered all the groups today. Yeah. So with that, that's it, guys. Any other last minute questions, thoughts? Or any questions you have for me?
Yeah, you said the reviews are due tonight at 11:59.
That is correct, Randolph. Tonight, 11:59. If you haven't already uploaded your presentation, do upload that. The poster review and your review on your teammates. Yeah, all of them, 11:59 tonight. Any other questions, guys? Well, in terms of grading, everything else is actually now graded. The only thing I have to finish is this part, the poster presentation. And my plan is to wrap that up by end of Friday, right? So you will actually have a good idea about what your grades are. If you don't have any other questions, I will
What
let you guys.
assignment do we submit this to?
Sorry?
What assignments do we submit it to?
Yeah, if you go to, that's a good question. Let me do the screen sharing now just to make sure everyone understands where we are. In the screen you're looking at, right, you go to course content and then you navigate into, as you always do, submit all homework and assignments, and then the actual poster through poster PowerPoint, right? And then the assessment of your teammates through peer assessment, assessment of the other posters through poster review. That's it, right? And then these are the empty forms, right? So peer assessment empty form over here, poster review form over here, right? So yeah, now make sure again, poster presentation only one for the entire group, right? Peer assessment, all of you will submit it. Poster review, all of you will submit that. Yep. Any other questions, guys, before I end this session?
Do you have a class next semester?
Do we have?
No, are you